Okay guys, here we go with our video today. Today we're going to be talking about ratios and rates. So we did some definitions today, so you guys might want to reference those definitions as we're working. First thing I want to talk about is some ratios. And there are three ways of writing a ratio. Remember, a ratio compares two quantities, so make sure that you write down what I just circled there. The three ways to write them are A to B, A to B, and A to B. Now I set them all the same because each has read the ratio of A to B. There are three different ways you can write them. You can use the word to, you can use a colon, or you can write it as a fraction. So those are the three ways that you can write it. Okay? And any of them are fine. The most common one that we'll be using is a fraction, but you can write them in any form if it doesn't say, or you'll see them more in the different forms, which is really what the important part is. Okay? Moving on. First we're going to talk about writing a ratio. And we're going to write the ratio three different ways. So in our first example, we have an archer shoots 60 arrows at a target, with 44 arrows hitting the scoring area and 16 missing the scoring arrow. Okay? So the question is, write the ratio in three ways. So we have two questions here. The first one is the number of hits. Two, there's our transition word, the number of misses. So I'm going to put the number of hits on top, and I put the number of misses on the bottom. The reason I did that is because that is the order that they are written in the problem. Number of hits, 2, number of misses. So my number of hits is 44. My number of misses was 16. So it's going to be 44 over 16. Now when I write ratios and I write them in their different ways, I'm just going to reduce them to simplest form, but I'm going to leave them in my form, fraction or the other forms, simplified. So they can both be divided by 4 here, so I can simplify them to 11 to 4. Okay? I'm not going to turn that into a mixed number. I'm not going to turn that into a decimal. I'm going to leave it like that. Now it does tell me to write it in the three different ways. So the three different ways are my three different forms. So I have a fraction, I have with a colon, or I have with the word to. Now they're all read the same way, 11 to 4. 11 goes on top or is first because that was my hits. The 4 goes on bottom or is the right because that was my misses. Okay? And those are my three different ways I can write it. I'm going to do the same thing with my next question. So it's number of hits, 2, my transition word, number of shots. So that's going to be 44 to 60. Again, they can both be divided by 4. So that's going to give me 11 to 15. So I'm going to write it my three ways. As a fraction, with the colon, or with the word to. And those are how I write those three different ways. Keys. Keep them in their forms. Don't write them as mixed numbers. Do not write them as decimals. And always simplify them. Okay? Moving on to my next example. In my next example, we're going to be working with unit rates. Now, when I find unit rates, I'm actually going to be dividing these. So you might need your calculator for these. And you're going to be expressing most of these as a decimal. If money is involved, you might hear it called unit price because money is involved. That's still a type of unit rate. Unit rates can be more than just money. But a lot of the examples that you will see will revolve around money because that is where you see the most unit rates. This would be using words with per, like miles per gallon, price per foot, that type of stuff that has the per this. So when you hear that word per, you are getting a unit rate. The key about the unit rate is the denominator, the second label, the second unit, is a denominator of 1. So it's always of 1 of that. So it's not that I can type 5,000 words in 20 minutes. It's how many words I can type per minute. Okay? And so we're going to convert that to these. So in this example, we have a party with 12 people. It costs $66. What is my cost per, there's my transition word, person. So I'm going to put cost on top. I'm going to put people on the bottom. Okay? So my cost is $66, and my people is 12 people. Now I divide those. 66 divided by 12. Well, that comes up to 5.5. Since it's money, I have to express it in money form. So it's going to be $5.50 for one person. Okay, that's how it is. Now, you can write it that way, or, and this is probably the way you'll see more, is you can write it like this, $5.50 per person, and you can use that slash. And that's probably the most common way, although I will accept either, because they are both correct. They both are representing the same thing. Okay, the most common way you'll see stuff, though, is the second way. All right, and that's how you find a unit rate. So we're actually going to divide these when they ask for a unit rate. So you do need to know the difference between I ask you to simplify a ratio and ask you to find a unit rate. You do need to understand that. Simplifying means you just reduce it. Okay, unit rates, you're actually going to divide it and tell me what the answer is in typically decimal or whole number form. Okay, you always have to have in a unit rate 2 labels. Dollars is one, person or people is the second one. Okay, you have to have 2 rates. Make sure you have that for all unit rates. Okay, next example. In example 3, we're going to be talking about equivalent ratios, or equivalent rates, excuse me. So, in this case, a jet flies 540 miles per hour. We're going to convert it to miles per minute. So the only thing that we have to change is our hours to minutes. So here's how we're going to do this. 540 miles per hour, well, that's a rate. It's a unit rate. So I'm going to write it as 1. 540 miles in 1 hour. So if you just pause and look at what I wrote up here, that's kind of like the difference between my 2 answers here. That's the same thing. So the problem gave it to me in the circled form, and I'm writing it in the other form. So they are the same thing. I just want you to see that. That is a rate that I just wrote there. Okay. Now, we are going to multiply that by an equivalent rate. Because if we multiply them, then it'll keep it proportional, and it'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this. It's called dimensional analysis. And I'm going to multiply it by a rate that would convert it for me, a conversion rate. And what I want to do is convert hours to minutes. So I have to know that there's 60 minutes equals 1 hour. That's something you need to know in order to solve this problem. So I'm going to multiply by that conversion rate. So I'm going to take my initial rate and I'm going to multiply by my conversion rate, 60 minutes in 1 hour. Now, which one do I put on top? Do I put 60 on top? Do I put 1 hour on top? I'm actually going to put 1 hour on top, and I'm going to put the 60 minutes on the bottom. It's not big number goes on the bottom or big number goes on top. It's not minutes always go on the bottom, hours on top. That doesn't matter. All that matters in this problem is I want to go back to my fractions and my cross-canceling. Since I already have hours in the denominator here, I want an hour in the numerator so I can cross-cancel them. If I put them both in the same denominator, then they're just going to multiply each other, which would be hours squared, and that does not help me. So I want to make sure that I have one in the numerator, one in the denominator. Also, my answer wants to be in miles per minute. So I have a miles in my numerator, and now I have a minute in my denominator. Miles per minute. So I want to make sure that is there when I'm done with my answer also. Now I can cross-cancel again. I can look to see if I can cross-cancel my 540 and my 60, and I can. 60 divided by 60 is 1, and 540 divided by 60 is 9. Okay? Now that I've done all my cross-canceling, I can write my answer. 9 miles is all I have on top, times 1, so that's going to keep it at 9 miles. Think of your unit as a variable. So before I had like 9x on top, now you have like 9 miles. Okay? It's just the same, works the same way as a variable. On the bottom, all I have is 1 times 1, and then a minute, so that's going to be 1 minute. Okay, and there we go. 9 miles per 1 minute, which again, most people are going to write like this. 9 miles per minute. Yes, you may use some abbreviations, okay? So miles, guys, is MI, not M. M is meters, so that would be this. Minutes is MIN. Okay, so those are some abbreviations. Yes, you can abbreviate your words. If it ever asks for miles per hour, MPH is fine as long as it's an accepted form of what we're doing. Don't try to make up your own. But yes, you don't have to write out all the words all the time. Okay, but there's our answer, 9 miles per minute. And again, you could write it in this form, or you could write it in this form, and that is fine, although the circled one would be the form you're going to see more often. Okay, let's go to our last example. Still part of our equivalent ratios. It's just another example with a little bit more things. So we have all this about a robot, and it's 1 inch in 3 seconds. Now I use the word in instead of a different to or whatever. It means the same thing, so you have to be able to understand that. And my final answer needs to be in feet in 4 minutes. So my final answer isn't even in a unit rate. So this is going to require multiple steps to answer it. The first thing I want to do is I am going to convert my time here. Since I want to be in minutes, the first thing I'm going to do is convert my answer into minutes. If I can go 1 inch in 3 seconds, how many inches do I go in a minute? So I'm going to first find that answer out. Okay, so when I work in there, I'm going to use my initial 1 inch to 3 seconds. And I'm going to convert, again, I'm going to convert my time here. Okay, and I know my time is 60 seconds equals 1 minute. Okay, now I'm going to put my seconds on top, and I'm going to put my minute on the bottom. Again, the reason I put seconds on top is I can cross-cancel that with the seconds I have on the bottom. That's going to leave me with an answer of minutes on the bottom, and I want to know how many feet does it travel in minutes. Now it's 4 minutes, and we'll convert that at the end. That's not a big deal. Okay, I can cross-cancel the 60 to a 20 and the 3 to a 1, and that is going to give me 20 inches in 1 minute. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 1. Okay, so I'm going to go through that. Now, step 2 is my robot wants to go in 4 minutes, so then I'm going to convert it to 4 minutes. So I'm going to take my 20 inches per minute, and now I'm going to multiply it by 4 minutes. Okay, and that's just over 1. There's no other rate. I'm just multiplying it by 4 because I just want to know how many 4 minutes. Again, the minutes can cross off. That's going to give me 80 inches. It is no longer a rate anymore. It's just 80 inches. Okay, because I got rid of all my other units. Now my last step then is then to convert it into feet per minute. All right, so I want to know how many inches that is. So I'm going to convert my 80 inches now to feet. So step 3 is to convert my 80 inches to feet. Okay, remember that's 80 inches that is in 4 minutes. Okay, it's 80 inches in 4 minutes. So that's how far it's going. So I'm going to convert that. So now I'm going to take my 80 inches and put that over 1 because there's no denominator on it, times, and I'm going to do my conversion rate here. And for this conversion rate, I need to know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So I'm going to put the inches on the bottom because I already have an inches on top here. So it's going to go on the bottom, and then on top I'm going to put my 1 foot. Okay? Now when I divide these, that's going to cross off my inches. My 80 and my 12, I can simplify that a little bit. 4 goes into both of those, so that's going to be 3. That's going to be 20. So that's going to leave me with 20 feet over 3. Now that doesn't look pretty, and it's not going to right now. So we got to make it look nice. So in this example, this is not a ratio. So I am going to turn it in. I'm going to turn this into a mixed number. So 3 goes into 26 times. So it's going to be 6 2/3 feet. So how many feet does a robot travel in 4 minutes? 6 2/3 feet. Okay, now if you want to put 6 2/3 feet in 4 minutes, you could. All right, if I could spell minutes, that'd be great. Okay, 6 2/3 feet in 4 minutes, but how far does it travel? It is going to travel 6 2/3 feet. You actually could do this problem. I did it in 1, 2, 3 steps here. You have to do it in 3 steps. Those are the 3 things you do. You could actually do this problem in a different order in the 3 steps, and you'd still get the right answer. So you could convert it to where I did time first. You could do the inches to feet first, and then work from there. So you actually could do this in a couple different ways, and you'd still get the same answer. Okay, I did it in a way that gave me the mixed number at the end instead of working with it earlier in the problem. Okay, that is it for tonight. So make sure you got that all written down, and tomorrow we're going to work on some ratios and rates in class. Have a wonderful night.